This thing recording? So I got the, oh boy. I finished the doohickey and I got the thingamabobber done and connected to the yoke. Pretty much, long story short. So it's right next to the, whatchamacallit. I'm like a magic with the edges, going like, shit, what was I gonna say again? Cut. Okay, so today is engine building day. We're gonna get into building the 454 LSX. So this is the engine here. It's just a LSX 454 7.4 liter. It's got the standard 4.185 bore. It's been honed. It's been line honed. So main caps and mains are all back to original housing. It's a 4.15 inch stroke. 6.125 rods, and that's really it. It's getting a Brian Crowler rotating assembly, so that's a Brian Crowler forged crank, just a 4.15 inch stroke on it. 6.125 rods. These are the Brian Crowler rods. It's got the CP Carrillo pistons, actually quite nicely machined. These with the 70cc cylinder heads will be 9-to-1 compression. I worked out my ring gaps, so top ring is going to be 23 thousandths and the second ring will be 29 thousandths. This is set up for, obviously you've seen, if you watched the other video, the Cleveland was an NA engine, so I think we did that one 17-18 thousandths. This one is obviously a greater gap because this engine is going to be forced induction. That's just the rings, wrist pins. Those are the main caps. These are the cam bearings, which is all I could find for the cast block, the iron block. It's just the only thing that was available. So not my first choice, but that's what I could get my hands on. Got the Calico ACL bearings, mains and rods. That's just a standard LSX camshaft. I think it's a 600 lift and it's a 280 duration or 260 duration. I can't remember exactly. It's got like a 110 lobe separation, so it's nothing fancy, just a standard LSX cam. That's the high pressure standard volume oil pump, which I'll take that apart because I don't like putting them together dry. And that's really it. It's just going, it's basically going together as a short block, so it won't be no heads on it, no intake, no water pump, just basically valley cover. It's oil pan, timing cover, rear cover, and it's just going as a spare engine for the customer. He just, you know, he races his car and he has the opportunity to build a spare one to keep it in the truck in case anything ever goes wrong, and that's really what this one's for. So the first thing that we do is we're going to install the cam bearings. One thing about the cam bearings is you see they have two oil holes. So what I do is you just put one of the oil holes to, if you look inside here, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but you can see there's a groove cut in there. and the gallery. So what you want is you want one hole to go obviously to the gallery, and then one hole is not being used. So what we'll do now is I have this special tool, and basically we're going to put the cam bearing on it, and then we'll install it in the block, and we'll do that now. Okay, so we have the cam bearings installed. Next, I think what we'll do is we will gap the rings. And then once we get the rings gapped, we'll put the pistons and rods together and then throw the crank in it. Pistons on the rods, and I got the bearings and the rod ends. I just want to show you guys real quick. See how there's a chamfered edge, and then there's a chamfered edge on the bearing. Obviously that goes towards the clevet side of the crank, and then this is the thrust side, so the two pistons mate on this side, and this is where the oil pressure bleeds off. So very important not to mix that up. But now what we're going to do is I have a plastic gauge here, and I'm going to take a little piece here just to, we had the main caps honed back to original size, and we're using a standard bearing, so we know it's right, but it never hurts to take a little plastic gauge and just check it. So I'm going to put it on the center cap there, and then I'll take my center cap and I'll torque it down real quick, and we'll just try to get an idea of what kind of clearances we have. out of the block, and then you'd basically take this gauge, and if you look here, actually if I can get this in here, it's about 2.5 thousandths, could be almost 3. So that's the clearance that we want. We want, you know, it's about 2.5 to 3 thousandths clearance. And yeah, so anyways, I'll get this all set up again. I'll get the crank back in it. Once I get the crank tightened in and torqued down, I'll start putting the pistons in the rods. Alright, so I'm going to install these. I'm going to install it with the bearings dry because I want to plastic gauge the rod bearing. So I just lubed this up a little bit. So I'm going to open this up. I'm going to caulk the rings. I usually caulk the rings. I put the oil ring there, and then the oil ring on that side, and then I put the second ring here and the top ring there. That's the top of my piston in the front. So top ring, second ring, oil ring top, oil ring bottom. And I take my compressor ringer thingamabobber and I tighten it. Obviously make sure it's straight, gets all your rings in. Okay. Take a bit of oil and wipe it in the bore. Take my piston and then make sure your chamfered edge is on the clevet side of the crank, and drop the piston in. Tap this lightly so it's against the block, and tap that in lightly. I'm going to turn the crank back, block back over. Okay, usually what you want to do is push it down and then put it on this side. I'll show you why. I'll show you why we put it on this side in a moment. So pull it back up. Then take our rod ends, put it there. So put the rod bolt in. Okay. Ooh. try to tighten this down evenly so that way that the dowels, it goes smooth on the dowels. So, okay. So, that's 25, 25. 44. Okay. I need to get my spanner to try to hold it. Okay. 70. Okay. We'll loosen it. So the reason I put the plastic gauge on the bottom of the rod bearing is because obviously the dowels are caught inside the rod. So when I tap this bolt to break it loose, it would obviously squish the top end of the bearing. So by putting the plastic gauge at the bottom, it gives a more accurate reading. Take that off. So you can see it there. And by me guessing, I'm just guessing now, but I'd say it's the same as the crank. Yeah, it's about 2.5, in between 2.5 and 3 thousandths of clearance, which is exactly what we wanted. So now we'll take this and we'll put it back together. Okay. That's the clearance that we were looking for. We wanted 2.5 to almost 3 thousandths of oil clearance. A lot of these engines, they say in the book that it's meant to be, I believe it's exactly 2 thousandths of oil clearance, but with forged rotating assembly, higher temperatures and everything, and obviously we'll have more oil pressure now and a different viscosity oil, because I believe that these take 530 from factory, which this won't be running. So we open up our oil clearances a little bit more to give more of an oil cushion, also with the added boost because this engine is going to be forced induction. And that's it, we have the oil clearances that we aim for. So now we just need to finish putting it together. So that's the bottom end assembled. We got the wobble shaft in it and the bang sticks. So what I'll do is I'll check it in a little bit. I torqued everything down. I torqued the rods to 75 foot-pounds, and then I torqued the mains to 60 in the center and 50 in the outer side. I'll let that settle for an hour and then I'll re-torque everything. But for now, we're going to do the oil pump. So usually when you get these milling oil pumps, what happens is that they come with a red spring, which is 15 psi over stock. So when you get the Melling oil pump, it comes with a Copo Camaro spring, and that one is 25 psi over the 15 psi stock one. So anyways, we're going to add this spring into the relief valve and get this pump put together. So I have the oil pump put back together and lubed up and ready to install. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to put the cam in the block. So the way I do it, you just have to get messy and down and dirty. So I just put a bunch of Lucas like this. So that's it. Now what we'll do is we need to put the thrust plate on it and the top timing gear, so that way it can hold the camshaft in place so it doesn't fall in. Next, what you put is, there's this thrust plate, and basically this thrust plate is for the camshaft. In the back here, you can see there's a groove cut out for an O-ring. This is very important because obviously one side of the oil journal comes this way, and it runs across here and then goes back to the other side. So if that O-ring is leaking, obviously you're going to lose oil pressure in the engine. So I always try to replace them. So I have them here. Actually, it's a 70, sorry, it's a 78 is actually the one for the thrust plate. So take these new gaskets, it's just an O-ring, and then you fit it into here like this. So as you can see, and then that's pretty much it. So, but this O-ring is important. So what I usually do is take these, and you have to make sure when you install it. Actually, what I usually do is, I'll show you. I usually just take, because all this will be encased in oil internally in the engine when it's running anyways, just put a bit of Lucas to make it stick, so that way we don't have to worry about it popping off when we fit it. So okay, so we have that. Now take it, and what I do is kind of push a bolt in there, catch this bottom one, and then I try to push it all the way in, so that way the plate's not moving around. We have to worry about the O-ring popping off, if you know what I mean. That all torqued up, the next thing that I would do, the woodruff key in, and the bottom gear. So just put the Woodruff key in here. Oh, no. So then what we'll do is we'll take our top timing gear and chain, and then take our 3 bolts. So actually we'll put this back on so that we can turn the engine. So on this here, if you look, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a dot, and obviously the top gear has a dot. They just have to line up, so it's pretty easy to time up. So if you look at the cam gear, well, it's not really like a dot, it's more like a notch, but that has to line up with the dot. So usually what I do is I'll put this on here and then catch a bolt, and then I will turn the camshaft to line up with the dot. I'll take this back off, and I'll take my chain and put it over, slide it on the bottom gear, and then just pop it on, and then put these in. And now you can see the cams on the dowel, 3 bolts in, the dot lines with the notch, and that's timed. Okay. So next is the guide. A lot of these LS's come with this chain guide. Now, I've run them without them. I've run them with them. I'm going to put this one on because I have it. So I'll just use it. It just goes in between there. And it just kind of keeps the chain from slapping. Okay. So next we'll install the oil pump. I usually install the oil pump with the block upside down. Reason for it is because I've filled the oil pump with oil, and then the pickup is here. So if you turn the pump like this, it's just gonna go everywhere. Center, you have to center the oil pump, and then basically push it on, and then put 4. I usually get 3 5/1000 filler gauges. Stick it in between the crankshaft gear and the oil pump gear, and it's meant to, when you tighten the oil pump, it's meant to center the oil pump inner gear on the crankshaft. We'll take the oil pump and torque it to 18 foot-pounds. Okay. Then take your feeler gauges out, and then that's the oil pump installed. Next, what I'll do, I'm going to put the front cover, the back cover, the oil pickup, and then the oil pan. so that's the engine built. That's a 454 LSX big block LS engine. That's the way I build them. Not saying that that's the way they're supposed to be built, but that's how I build them. This one is going out to the customer like this. This is going to be his spare engine for when he's out racing in Europe. He has one on the truck in case anything goes wrong. He has an engine there. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.